Hello, everyone. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, there you go. All right. Thank you for the coming to the Department of Epidemiology seminar series. I'm very, very pleased to introduce Dr. Molly Lamb, although I probably don't need to introduce her. But I'm very proud to have her come and talk with us about this very interesting topic. Molly got her PhD in our program, our epidemiology program here, and then went off to become an EIS officer for a few years, and then came back to do research, and she's currently an assistant professor in the Department of Epidemiology, and she's teaching quite a few of our core courses, research methods, analytic epi, and I think she's learned quite a bit along the way, as well as some of the outside workshops that she's gone to. So I'm very pleased to hear, because I need this, very much so, because I feel like a dinosaur sometimes, about teaching in the 21st century, innovative teaching methods to engage millennials and iGEN students. Yeah, that one.
Because this whole seminar is going to be discussion based, and there's a big old screen here that's in the way that's driving me crazy, right. And so we don't want that getting in the way of our discussion. Because you'll see in a minute why I think screens get in the way of actual human interaction. Okay. Good. So, before I get started, I'm trying to figure out the group that we have here. How many of you are with the School of Public Health? Anybody with anything besides the School of Public Health? Okay. Medical school? Right? Okay. Good. Just had to get to know the audience here. Let's see if this works. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about, first of all, who are the generations, and you can all place yourselves and figure out which generation you fall into, and what are the defining traits of those generations. We're going to talk about how technology has changed how our brains work, which I'm sure you all have personal experience with, and then also not only how it changes how your brain works, but how you behave, and how you interact with people, and how you learn. Then we're going to talk about teaching methods that kind of cater to the new brain that we have in our heads. And then how do we engage our students when we're in a classroom full of digital distractions? So, first of all, the generations. Have you guys all seen these before? You're all like wondering what your birth year, like what generation you fall into, okay? Silent generation was born before the end of World War II. Okay, this is my grandparents. And actually, my dad was in the silent generation. He was born in 1944. They are very loyal. They are very risk-averse. They want to gain a skill, get a job, stay in the job retirement, retire, get their pension, and their gold watch. Okay, this is how the work world used to look. This was the expectation when you graduated from whatever trade school you graduated from. It's okay. Come on over. You can just come and have a seat. Okay. Then we got to the baby boomers. Any baby boomers in this room? I know we have baby boomers in this room. All right, yeah, born right after the war, when all the soldiers came home from World War II, and 9 months later we had a bunch of babies. Surprise, surprise. Up through 1964. They are considered to be independent and confident. They like to forge new paths. They live to work. This is the generation that decided that work was the most important thing in life and that their career was everything and that they would pursue it, sometimes at the expense of other things in their lives. They actually coined the phrase live to work. There's some of our famous baby boomers. We've got, is that Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Bill Clinton, Michael Jordan, all people that have carved some very strong and sometimes unique paths in this world. And then we've got Generation X. This is kind of a funny generation. This is a transition generation. They're the most heterogeneous generation, and they're kind of hard to describe. But the best thing is they came up with the work-life balance. They thought you needed to have work, and work was important, yes, but then they said, y'all baby boomers, y'all work too much. We need to have more balance. We need to have some home time, too. And they became adaptive to job instability because this is when pensions were starting to go away and when people started having the concept that you could have more than one job or more than one career in your life. Right? Remember the silent generation? They stayed in their jobs till they retired. Generation X, they start jumping around a lot more. Okay, then we got our millennials. These are the ones born, the cutoff varies. It can be 80 to 81. I am right on that border. I was born in late 1980. I'm 38 years old if you're doing the math. And, because I know you are. And so here we have some of our more famous millennials. That's right, the royal family. Those Prince William, Prince Harry, and their beautiful wives. I miss my chance, you guys. They are my generation, right there. They flipped it from the baby boomers. These are the children of the baby boomers. They work to live. They say, yeah, I'll work, I'll get enough money, and then I'm going to get out there and live. This is the sharing economy. These are the people that invented Uber, Airbnb, VRBO, Lyft, right? They don't want to own things. They invented minimalism. They said, we don't want your stuff. We want to spend our money on experiences rather than stuff. We're going to share everything, and that includes knowledge, okay? They don't do 9 to 5 work hours. They invented the flexible schedule. They want to work from home. They want to work whatever hours they can. They just want you to say, yes, you got your work done. And they don't really follow normal retirement timelines, okay? So silent generation said you retire at 65, right? Baby boomers, oh, I guess now you have to retire at 67 if you want to get Social Security, right? Millennials, I have friends that are in their 30s, they're millennials, they've retired. I'm not even kidding you. Okay? And they are not trust fund babies, and they do not have a bazillion dollars in the bank. They've just figured out how to live. And they hack life, and they live on a whole lot less, and they're perfectly comfortable, and they travel the world for the rest of their lives. I have friends that do this. Okay. Then we get down to the iGEN. These are the post-millennials. They're also called Generation Z. And these are the ones that were born starting in 1997. They are considered to be antisocial. This is the defining trait of their generation, and you'll see why in a minute. They are the true digital natives. For reference, Google was invented. Google was founded in 1998. These kids have never known a world in which they had to look for information. They have always been completely saturated with it. They breathe it like air. They can't imagine not having access to every answer under the sun. Okay, so how does technology change our human brain? And how does it change our behavior? Is it any surprise that it shortens our attention spans? Do y'all feel like your attention spans have shortened since you got a cell phone? Do y'all remember before you had a cell phone? I got my first cell phone in 2001. I actually sent my first text in 2001, believe it or not. And it was different. So I went through all of high school and half of college before I had technology.
But you were younger, too.
What's that?
You were younger.
Yeah, I was 20 years old.
So it's confounded.
Right. Oh, no! Who let the epidemiologist in the room? Man. So anyways, when a digital native, and even us now, because I do the same thing and I'm not technically digital native, when we want to learn something, we don't read a book, right? That's huge sustained attention span. You're sitting here and saying, oh man, I have to read 3 pages or 30 pages or 300 pages. No, you're going to skim, or you graze, they call it. And how many of you, when you're doing research for a project, have at least 13 browser tabs open, right? And you're looking across them and you're jumping around, right? That's skimming. And you grab a little something from here, and then you see if it lines up with what's over there, and then your friend texts you about dinner, and then, right, this is going on all the time. So you're multitasking. You're not developing the stamina to read in depth. Now, that is a problem because you're not developing the ability to build the framework of knowledge in your head in the traditional way. And by traditional, I mean the way that all of our educational systems are designed to teach you, right? So you have an educational system that uses textbooks, and we'll talk about that, and works from knowledge coming from a single source, where all the knowledge has been consolidated nicely into a nice big tome that you're supposed to absorb. But that's not how we learn anything, okay? And also we are driven to multitask, we have constantly divided attention. Multitasking doesn't mean that you're doing a bunch of tasks at once. It means you're doing a bunch of tasks poorly, one after another. Okay? So you don't get in-depth focus, and to show you how bad this problem is, they figure a person is distracted digitally about every 3 minutes. It takes you 23 minutes to get back into focus. Every 3 minutes, you get another hit of technology. How do you ever focus? Do y'all feel this problem?
Especially
Okay.
email.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, email. How we love and hate email. Okay. So, pop quiz, guys. What is a digital native's preferred mode of professional communication? What do you think? Chat. Oh, I forgot chat. We'll work it in here. Okay. Number 1, professional mode of communication for digital native is text. Right? Followed by, if you can't get them by text, or if your teacher won't give you their cell phone number, oh my God, then you can do email. Okay? Email is considered formal. If you're sending an email, this is like serious business, okay? It is actually uncomfortable for an iGEN kid to write an email. They really just want to text you. Okay? Then, if you really have to have like an actual sustained conversation, they prefer to do it with a screen in front of them, between you and them. Skype, Zoom, online meetings. How many of you have had a Skype meeting in the last week? Or Zoom, or an online meeting? Right. Was it with somebody that you could have met with in person? Right?
You have to walk from one building to another.
Oh my. Now, I have Skype and Zoom and online meetings with people in Indonesia, and I understand that we can't meet in person, right? But this has become a substitute now for real in-person interaction. It's very convenient. We love it. We can record the meeting. We can go back and look at the minutes. But it prevents us from actually having in-person interaction, okay? I'm going to go to the phone call. How many of you have called a professional colleague in the last week?
I prefer email.
What's that?
We've had a conference call.
A conference? No, like actually picked up the phone and called one person and had a professional conversation. I got one, yes. And it was the person sitting next to you. Could you have had that meeting in person?
If I would have had to drive.
Oh, okay. So that's part of the problem with today's structure in our professional environment, right? Is that we're all scattered very far away and we have commitments in many places. All right. What am I missing, guys?
In person.
Dot. Yeah. Digital natives will avoid in-person meetings at any cost. They are very uncomfortable in that world. Okay. And I'm going to say things that sound like generalizations in here. And if you're saying, my generation doesn't define me, and I don't do that, and my kids don't do that, we're using these generalizations as instructive guideposts to tell us what to expect and how the world has changed. Okay, so communication these days, our brains are now wired that communication is much more frequent. It is more sculpted. Okay? When you send a text, you can edit that text. When you send an email, how much time do you spend making sure and rearranging and getting it to say exactly what you want to say? It's more sanitized. You are presenting an idealized version of yourself. This is why in-person interactions are uncomfortable, because they don't allow you to edit it before the other person sees it. Okay? So we've got this sculpted, idealized version of yourself. Did you know on Skype, you can push a little button that says, make me look younger?
No. Oh my God.
Yes. You can actually put a youth filter on your Skype. So you're presenting this perfect picture of yourself, but it takes out the ugly, messy reality of you being human, okay? They're also much shallower, right? They're much shorter. You don't have long conversations on text. Maybe you do. I don't know. I can't text that fast. Even emails. If your email is longer than this, no one's going to read it. And you know that. And so you don't write long emails, right? Phone calls, nobody does, right? In person. Wow, I'm really glad that you guys actually showed up today. In person. You know how many people wrote me and asked me if they could Zoom this?
Are you recording this?
It is recording. I do not have power over that. I tried to get rid of it. Okay. What else do people do? What else is affecting our brains? This is a really interesting quote coming from a 2015 Pew Research study. People turn to their phones for two things: to avoid boredom and to avoid people. Okay? And you will see this with kids a lot these days. Children, when we were children, it was difficult to interact with adults, right? Adults are intimidating and scary, and you have to, like, you know, they will correct you when you're wrong. And so children today, like, they'll just retreat into their phones. Students will retreat into their phones. Adults will retreat into their phones because it's a safer place, right? So people are also less comfortable with boredom. Have you ever heard the phrase break the twitch? The twitch is grabbing your cell phone when you're standing there. And that 3 seconds between when you put your credit card into the reader and when you have to take it out again. Kid you not. People actually grab they've done studies on this. People grab their cell phones in a space of time, a gap in their lives, as short as 3 seconds. Okay, we don't get bored anymore because we have this endless flow of information sitting in our pocket where we can just go and be entertained constantly. Okay, which means that your brain never has time to rest. It never has time to sit down and sort itself out, or to mull over something, or to let solutions rise to the surface as your brain is percolated through a problem. Because you're constantly distracting yourself with your cell phone. And I do this too. I'm not saying you all are bad people and that I'm perfect and have fixed this problem. No. I do this too. And I have to consciously put my phone away and walk away from it if I actually want to think. Okay? So they also avoid people. This is a problem because we're not developing people skills. Okay? Our children and our students, and now the students that we're getting in graduate school, have had a phone in their hands their whole lives. They are more conflict averse because they cannot handle that intense human interaction. It is 10 times more, it's hard to do anyways. It's 10 times more frightening if you've never developed that skill because you've never practiced it, because all of your interactions have been on text. They're more compliment averse, which is the flip side of conflict averse. Complimenting somebody, praising somebody, being excited about something with somebody in person is also a strong emotion that they have not learned to manage or build. They don't have that skill in person. They can send you lots of emojis about how excited they are for you, but would they give you a hug in person? That would make them uncomfortable. They're more emotionally fragile. I have noticed, I've been in a teaching capacity in one way or another for 15 years now. Okay. My mom has been teaching science for 47 years now, and is still teaching. She's in the classroom today right now. And she has noticed, and I have noticed in my 15 years and in her 47 years, that students, you can't criticize them anymore.
Right.
Thank you. Right? You can't have this thing where you say, look, here, I have to correct you. You've goofed, you've done something wrong, and now we have to work through how to correct it. They start crying. I have a box of Kleenexes in my office now because of this. I mean, it's so much harder because they have not learned to deal with this. Yes?
When you say compliment at first, do you mean giving compliments or receiving? Either both.
Both, and I spelled compliment wrong there, so I apologize now that I see that. But yes, both. They are less likely to give you a compliment in person, but they might text you about it later. And receiving one is also difficult. If you praise them for something, that is uncomfortable. They don't know how to just say thank you. I actually had to learn that skill in grad school because even though I didn't grow up with a cell phone, I'm from Minnesota, and so in Minnesota we have the yeah buttle, which means somebody compliments you and you say, yeah, but here's actually what's wrong with me. And so I'm not even kidding, that's totally a Minnesotan thing. And so I had to learn that, and so I see it in people now from all over the place because it's an emotional response when somebody compliments you, and it's very awkward because they don't know how to handle that emotion in person, live, without being able to edit it. So, and they also have a lot of trouble reading and responding to nonverbal cues because they don't see people. And you can't read those as well through a screen. If you're Zooming with somebody and you can see their face, you have a chance, but you can't see their whole body. You can't see that they're fidgeting with their hands or that, they've got those micro expressions and stuff that pass their face. You can't see those unless you're in person. And if you don't grow up learning to see those and read those, then you don't have that skill. So our students coming into our classrooms now. This is how their brain's wired. Okay, so what does our built environment look like? Okay, technology has changed our built environment as well. Okay, we have no textbooks. Our students find more complete, updated information faster online. Textbooks are obsolete before they're even printed. And so a lot of classes and a lot of schools are actually just getting rid of textbooks. And they're saying, we may have an online structure of knowledge in some way that gets constantly updated. But students don't want to buy textbooks. They don't want to read them. I assign readings all the time in my classes. Do they read them? A couple years ago, I had a class, and this is a class that had a textbook that they needed to read. And they knew it, and I assigned them chapters every week. Halfway through the class, I said, how many people have opened their textbook this semester? You want to guess? What do you think the percentage was? 20. It wasn't that bad. This is a couple years ago now. It was 50%. And this is where I've been assigning them required readings every week. They're not reading. Okay? We have no computer labs. Okay? There's a class that I started teaching a couple years ago and built into the syllabus said you need to sign out, check out the computer labs for these particular weeks because we're going to go there because we have to do stuff on the computer. I said, are you kidding me? Every single student walks in here with a laptop, right? We don't need to get a lab. We don't need computer labs. So students bring their own devices. And by the way, I've been doing like computer-based projects in class for at least the last 4 years now. And I have not once had a student say, I'm sorry, I don't have a computer. Can I get to a lab? It's not a problem, these are obsolete. Internet is everywhere, and they fact check constantly. And they will fact check you. And they will tell you if you have said something wrong in class. And I appreciate that. I really do, guys. Okay, they don't use office phones. They don't use office hours. Right? Remember, in-person communication is uncomfortable. Electronic is safer. They will not use office phones. Pop quiz, guys. How many of you are teaching right now? A couple of you? Has a single student called or stopped by your office hours? Oh, you're so ahead of the game. Okay, I love this. How many student emails have you answered in the last month? Probably over 100, right? But nobody's going to come talk to you. How many of a student text you a question?
I don't give my.
Good. They will if you let them.
I know.
I work very hard to keep myself one over privates because I don't want students to fall back onto the texting crutch. Students have no boundaries. And I mean this in the nicest way, but they expect answers immediately, and they have no boundaries between their social world and their professional world. Okay, that is one big blur now.
When I get emails about requesting a meeting, they ask for a meeting tomorrow or this afternoon.
Oh yeah. Can I come by at 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
Of course you're available, right? But it was impressive that they want to actually have a face-to-face meeting, right? So you want to encourage that. But yeah, their sense of time is greatly contracted. Is anyone here actually friends with a student or a professor on Facebook? Okay. We're actually past this now. Facebook is old school. Yeah. Nobody uses Facebook anymore, you guys. My grandma uses Facebook.
I do too.
But not professionally, I hope. Okay. So now they're like, I don't know, what do they do? Snapchat and Twitter, WhatsApp, yeah. Okay, so that's what our built environment looks like. So how do we teach in the midst of this? How do we actually get our students to pay attention and learn something? I love this picture because all those guys are working together. Unfortunately, it's all guys, but they're all working together on one great big huge problem. And you know they're talking to each other while they're doing this. And this kind of epitomizes what we need to be doing in our classrooms. So how many of you have taught an undergraduate or graduate level course last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Okay, so a fair number of you have good teaching, like, longevity here where you can see sort of the trends over time. How many are teaching right now? Just a couple of you, I think. 3, 4. Okay, are you teaching in person? Or over the past, we'll go over the past 5 or 10 years, any classes you've taught. You've all done in-person classes? Hybrid? I know you do hybrid. I've taught in your hybrid class. Online? You teach a hybrid? Are you teaching an online class?
I did. Well, I was a TA at least.
Okay, yeah, that counts. You're a person in a position of teaching authority.
Same class, both in person and online, though. So that's.
Oh, good. I want to hear about your experience with that. We're going to get into that discussion. Okay. So, when you're teaching, mostly in person and also, well, hybrid online as well, what is your primary mode of conveying information?
PowerPoint lecture.
PowerPoint lecture?
In online or
How about in person?
in person? Lecture or discussion?
Discussion or PowerPoint? Anything else that you guys use?
Group exercise.
Yeah.
Group
Yeah,
exercises.
activities.
All right. So we've got some variety there. Good deal. As time goes, because some of you have been teaching for at least 10, maybe 15, 20 years, are you using more technology or less technology in your classroom?
Well, I went from transparencies to PowerPoint.
Wow! I've been making transparencies in high school. That was a thing. What do you guys think? Do you use more or less?
Not much more.
Not much more?
A little bit.
What do you mean by
Like
technology? Do you mean Canvas and Blackboard, or
Right.
what do you mean?
So technology is when there's a screen
we use
between you and the
Canvas.
students. Like a screen involved in the conveying of information, not just this direct human interaction.
Or like animations.
Animations,
Yeah.
yeah, they count, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Videos that,
Yeah. So
Show.
then if you count those, then
right,
more.
so you're using more. So, turns out, PowerPoint and lectures are actually really 4 ways to convey information. And they're really convenient. And they feel great because you're like, all the information's there, I've sculpted it, it's simple, like, it's bullet points, like, how can they miss it? It's bullet points, right? It prevents learning from being creative because it's already structured, and it can get in the way of a conversation or a class discussion that leads in unexpected ways but still helps the students learn. It can get in the way of preparing material because it's already been set. Because you make your PowerPoint, and then the next year you say, oh good, I've got my PowerPoint, go, right? So you may not be updating it as much. And incidentally, it can take so much time to prepare PowerPoints that the U.S. Armed Services and Amazon have both banned PowerPoints. Because because it takes so much actual time. Like the Armed Services said, all of our junior officers, all they're doing all day is making PowerPoints. They're not learning to make decisions. They're not making decisions. They're not acting on decisions. They're making slides. Amazon said, screw this. We don't want to sit here and watch presentations because if you send it up beforehand, it feels good because they know you're going to flip through it anyways, right? So what Amazon does is they make you write a brief, like 2 or 3 or 4 pages, I think, that at the beginning of a meeting, everybody sits there in silence and reads the brief for 20 minutes. And this guarantees that everybody has read it, because how many times do you show up at a meeting and people haven't actually reviewed the material, right? And then everybody's on the same page to have discussion. So PowerPoint is actually, and I realize I'm giving you a PowerPoint right now. I noted the irony of this when I made this, but I also built it in a way that had discussion built into it.
Oh, so it's okay if you have discussion built in.
Right, so if you're going to use PowerPoint, make it interactive and collaborative and allow it to be thrown out the window, right? So if the class discussion goes in another direction, pick up the marker, get on the whiteboard, and follow it that way. Okay, because the PowerPoint structure can be a little bit restrictive and rigid. Okay, we also need to get, like I said, get students to open their mouths, right? This is why we're having discussion. Get them to pick up their pencils, not their keyboards. This is a critically important issue here. Okay, why? Here's why. Taking notes in longhand helps students retain information better than a laptop. This has been extensively studied. This is a pretty conclusive finding. Why do you think that is? What's that?
We've been having this discussion in my class.
Oh, have you?
Made them do some longhand stuff and they don't like it.
They don't know how to write
It's so
cursive
true,
anymore.
though,
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't teach cursive in schools anymore. So, did you have a thought on?
Yeah, because you have to process the information.
Right. Yeah, that's what I think. You can't, because you can't write fast enough. So you have
Exactly.
to summarize or think about it and summarize it. But
Yep. You can't write fast enough. So when somebody's taking notes on a laptop, they're trying to write down every word the professor says. And I can't tell you how many times in class I'll make a statement that kind of like is, you know, if I do say so myself, a very good statement that sums up the point. And the students will say, "Can you repeat that?"
Right.
Right? You've all had this experience? Because they're trying to write down every single word you say. They're not processing it. They're not summarizing it. They're not trying to find the main points that are rising to the top that are most important for them to write down.
Or taking pictures with their phone.
Oh my God, that's even better. When I'll put a whole board full of equations up, they'll all walk up and afterwards. Yeah, exactly. Because they think they're going to process it later. They're not. Right? In the class, as they're being presented the material, it's a time for them to process it. Taking longhand notes is the way to do that. Okay. So this is an interesting quote that we found. As information becomes ubiquitous, success is no longer about knowing the most. Instead, it's the ability to think critically and creatively. Okay?
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think these tips are not necessarily good for the millennials or Gen X's. They're good for teaching
Everybody.
across generations. So.
Right. And this gets to the deeper issue.
Okay.
We're all human. Okay? Even baby boomers are human, right?
But I think that actually, you know, in the past, or teaching the previous generations was easier because
they didn't have technology.
Yeah, and they were both
Right.
teachers and students were much more able to adopt these techniques than today. So
Right. And that's the challenge, and we'll talk about that later on. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Absolutely.
I was just trying to push you to quit your presentation and have a conversation.
I like it. No, but I mean, this is a really good point. Thank you.
No.
But yes, our brains still learn best when we have to process information live and synthesize it and stuff. And so the main question then is, digital technology is everywhere. How do we teach students to learn and process information and synthesize it and come to creative solutions when they have technology in their hands, right? So textbooks are optional. Students are going online for multiple sources of information. That's your 48 browser tabs open. So our goal is to teach our students to filter and synthesize information, even if you can't get them to pick up their pencil, even if you can't get them to read a whole textbook. How do we get them to work in the world where they have mostly online sources? And we're going to discuss that in a bit. So one of the ways that we talk about, and you've all heard about the flipped classroom? Has anyone here not heard of the flipped classroom? Okay. So the flipped classroom is, so this is your traditional lecture back in the day, and the teacher would lecture in front of their PowerPoint presentations, and the student would go home and do homework activities alone. Right? Flipped classroom is when, ideally, they watch the lecture online, because they're quite happy watching things online. And when they come to the classroom, it is all interactive. It is all group activities. It is all human interaction. They are doing what we call multimodal learning, where if they have things online, they're talking to each other, they're getting input from the teacher, and they've got all these modes of information. They're really good at processing multiple modes of information. They're used to it flowing through, right? An average millennial is used to having 2 to 3 streams of digital content coming at them at any given time. An average iGEN kid, 5. They are constantly processing massive amounts of data. Okay?
So we have the second model, for example, in the class that I am teaching.
Good.
Except that at the end of that, they want the answers.
Right. They always want the answers.
Yeah.
Students always want the answers. That hasn't changed over time.
It was here in my class. What do? Do you give them the answers?
Is there one single right answer?
No.
You tell them that. They have to get uncomfortable, or they have to get comfortable with that uncertainty. and with realizing that there are creative solutions and there's not always one right answer. And they can approach it better in a flipped classroom rather than in a traditional lecture where they think they have to take a test and the test has only one line and it has only one right answer. So this kind of loosens up the concept of learning. By the way, this is not new. The flipped classroom was first written about and conceived in 1993. That predates Google. So this has been something for a long time that we've said, even before internet and technology came into our lives in a major way, this is still a better way to learn. This is a flipped classroom. This is not hands-on, okay? In case you think, so if you see what's going on here, you've got a science teacher here. Oops, let me go back. This is the science teacher. He's doing a science experiment here that involves something that's, smoking and stuff. All the students are watching it through their screens. They're standing right there. They're so close they have to wear goggles to stay safe. Look at this kid up here. He's wearing goggles. So is she. He. And they're watching it through a screen. They should be in there pouring the stuff themselves, right? They should actually physically touch it anyway. Okay. So we say digital natives are uncomfortable interacting with people, right? We've said that all along. So we're going to put them into groups, right? This is a classroom from 1953. My mom is actually in that picture. That's her one-room schoolhouse that she attended. See if you can figure out which one she is. And they all sat in rows. They all looked forward. They all read the book. They all answered the questions individually. There was no group interaction in a one-room schoolhouse. This is what classrooms look like today in high school. This is the iGENs that are coming at you. Okay? It's all group activities. And if we look here, they've got textbooks. Oh my gosh, they actually have their books open, right? There's a computer thing here. They've got PowerPoints going on. They've got a teacher walking around helping them. Multimodal learning in a group setting. This is what classrooms look like in junior and senior high school. In my son's first grade classroom, they don't even really have desks. They have all sorts of different seating options, right? They have cushions and couches and stuff. They can choose to go lay wherever they want to do their assignments. They can group up however they want. It's a much less structured environment in the K-12. So, I say let's have more in-person group projects where they actually have to work together with each other in person, and they can use all of their technology to support them. Is that going to prepare our students for the workforce? What do you think? So, when they do surveys and say what traits are employers looking for in their employees? In the top 5, almost always, it's communication, verbal communication, personal communication. Not that they can write emails. And teamwork or interpersonal skills. Also in the top 5 usually is creative problem solving. So we need to set up our educational environment so that they're ready for this, because that's what employers still want today. They don't want a person who comes in and sits in their cockpit with their 3 screens around them and does their digital communications all day long. That doesn't have fun. Okay, so we also need more hands-on experiences. Okay, and this is something that students have been asking for. I have students coming to me all the time saying, I want real-world experience. I can't get a job just saying I attended these classes. I need to have experience to talk about. Yes, they do. Our external stakeholders, we do surveys of them all the time. They say, students with field experience are better hires. We want them. In K through 12 education now, they do things called practice-based learning, where they have a huge project that actually makes the students go out into the world, into their community, and do things, gets them out of the classroom. So they're ready for this, right? They know how to do this, and we can continue that at the university and the graduate level. So I have to talk about online teaching briefly, and this is mostly about in-person because online teaching is a whole other can of worms that I can't even wrap into 1 hour. But what do you think is the more successful teaching strategy in terms of students absorbing information? And I know some of you have done some research on this. Online or in-person? How many say online? How many say in-person? How many are afraid to vote because we're in person and they don't want to be online? Okay. What do you think students prefer? How many think students prefer online?
Depends on the student. Yeah.
That's a good point. And that actually matters because personality, very introverted students strongly prefer online.
How about a combination?
Of online and having variety,
Recorded.
having options?
Yeah.
Yeah, And that's what we try to give them now in our today's world, is variety. So actually, in general, the research is still conflicting, but kind of rising to the top is that students do learn better in person compared to online. You can get the exact same class online and in person. They will have better scores in the in-person class, and they will be happier. Okay? We've done recent surveys here at CSPH, and students enjoy the flexibility. They want to be able to have the option to say, I'm going to do my class at night because I work full-time, but they still prefer in-person courses. And why do they? Because they want the human aspect. Remember, human interaction is uncomfortable for them, but they're still human and they still crave interaction. A classroom is a safe setting for them to get that. Okay? They can come in and choose to interact as much or as little as possible as they want to, but they are still in the presence of other people. And it is more likely that they will get interaction. So, how do we engage our students in all of our digital distractions? Or as one of the articles I read so succinctly titled it, how can a distracted generation learn anything? So, you are always, as a teacher, competing with at least 2 electronic devices per person. Okay? In a classroom of 40 students, there are probably 80 to 100 electronic devices in that classroom. Not including mine, that I'm trying to get them to pay attention to, right? Or me, even better. So, how many of you have actually checked your email or text message at least once during this seminar? Come on, guys. There we go. And this doesn't, you guys have been like really good about not removing your laptops. Normally I have like 38 laptops in a classroom. But you can imagine how this happens. People being distracted by the screen, so somebody's sitting in front of you. So even if you're trying to behave yourself and are not, shopping on Amazon, the person in front of you might be. And you're watching them because it's a screen and it just draws you in. There's something about it that just, you can't avoid it. So everybody's being distracted all the time. How many here are taking class right now? I know there's at least a few students in here. In person? Hybrid? Both? How many electronic devices do you have within arm's reach when you're doing classes? 2? Unusual? On average, 2? Let me see, your phone and your computer, right? You don't have the watch? You have the watch. I know that, yeah. Okay, so this is always happening. So let's get a little bit of structure for how to keep students engaged. And this is something that Christy Price put together, who's a professor at Dalton State, on teaching and engaging digital natives. So the first thing, as we've already talked about, is group collaborative projects, more peer collaboration, less lectures. I know I'm lecturing you to have less lectures, but research-based, which means they have relevance in the real world. And here's our relevance. They need to have hands-on, directly applicable lessons. Okay? My students all the time want to know, like, oh, you're teaching me this skill. How do I use that in the real world? And how do I use that in the real world tomorrow? Right? These are graduate students. They're already professionals. They're working in the real world too. They're learning skills and they're immediately putting them into practice. Rationale. This is interesting. They don't respond well to authoritative styles. They don't want you to say, let me tell you how to do this. Let me tell you because I'm the expert. No, this is a generation that says, we're all experts. We all have access to a universe of information, right? And so you're there to guide them and to help them sort through that information, but you are not the almighty expert. And they don't want to be talked down to. And they do not respond well to being talked down to. Because they do know more than you in other areas of life. Like how to program your computer. Or how to rewrite your hard drive. Right? You need to have a relaxed atmosphere. Okay? It needs to be flexible, right? The conversation needs to be able to go in other directions. It needs to be warm. They need to feel welcome there because remember, they're kind of nervous about showing up in person and interacting with people, so it needs to be very welcoming. It needs to be empathetic. You need to teach them empathy because they're not learning it when they spend their childhoods texting. We don't develop human empathy as well as we used to before we had phones in our hands. And so your learning environment has to be empathetic. And you have to develop rapport, okay? They struggle to form connections, but they want them. They crave them. They are human. Humans are social creatures. We evolutionarily survived because we are social creatures. So how do we do this in my classroom? And I want to hear you guys' ideas too on how you do it in yours. So for research-based projects, I have a ton of group activities. Anyone here in one of my classes or has taken one of my classes? Lindsay, you took one of my classes like 4 years ago.
I thought you meant one of the ones you're teaching right now.
No.
But no, yeah, I took.
But yeah, you've taken one of my classes. You'll notice that I do a lot of group activities and I use a lot of real-world examples.
Yeah.
Right? I make my students get in small groups and do things together all the time in class. In class. They're not going to do it outside of class. Because if you say do a group project outside of class, they put it together on Google Docs. And they never actually see each other face to face. So you have to give them protected time. Group the older students with the younger students, because the younger students know how to use the technology and the older students have more patience and communication skills. They learn from each other. Relevance?
Can I comment on that?
Mm-hmm.
Groups need to be small enough, in my
Yes.
experience, because if they're too big, there will be groups within groups that are formed
Yes.
based on preference.
And what is the maximum group size? What do you think?
I don't know. We started with 10, so 10 was too big.
10's too big.
I think 5 would be optimal.
3 to 5? What do the students think? 2? Because if it's 3, one of them's checking out and checking out. Yeah, 3 to 5 is usually the average that works for them to actually all be involved. I tend towards the 3 side.
I find actually to say that having taught a course where a group project was something that was major in the class is some students really don't like group projects.
That's right.
They don't like them.
They don't. And you have to push them. And I've had students when I say, okay, we're doing a group project, the entire class period today is us doing this group project. I've had students that literally like walk and stand in the back of the room and just stand there because they don't want to do a group project. We have to have a conversation about that. But and then the next day, when we do a group project that's also like that big, they finally join in. They're very uncomfortable with human interaction. They don't want to do a group project. Some of them are very introverted. Tough cookies. The entire world is collaborative. Okay, you don't do anything alone in this world anymore. Any job that you ever have when they graduate is going to involve working in a group. It's going to involve working on a team of experts that all have different skills in them, and they have to contribute to that team. And I would challenge you to come up with any career or job that a student would have that would not require them to work on a team. They need to learn it, and they need to learn it in our classrooms. All right, make sure we're doing okay. We want to have relevance. Our activities need to have real-world applications. I will pull examples from my research. I will pull examples from the news that morning. I will have them work through projects that when they get to the end of the project, we say, here's how that project actually played out in the real world. Here's the publication from it. Here's the policy that resulted from it. Okay? Rationale. This is the they don't like authority thing, right? Keep the lights up. Don't turn the lights down and show your PowerPoint. Keep the lights up and talk with them. Open up that two-way channel of communication right on the board. Make mistakes. I don't intentionally make mistakes on the board, but as my students can tell you, I make mistakes on the board anyways. And the students correct me. And that's great, because then it shows them that this is a safe place for them to make mistakes. Remember, they grew up in that world where they can show the world the idealized version of themselves. And the real world is messy, and in-person is messy, and they need to make mistakes and learn that that's okay, and they learn from those mistakes, and they learn from others' mistakes. Okay, you need to be relaxed. Be available before and after class. I actually build a 5-minute break in the middle of my classes so that students can approach me in the middle of class. Because maybe they get there just as class is starting, maybe they have to leave early, but I know that they're still there at the middle. And I create that space for them to approach me because it lowers the barrier for that human interaction. And I protect percolation time. I give them space to think. Because they don't have that. What's that?
I just want to interrupt for you.
Yeah. Percolation time?
When does that happen? During class?
During class. Mm-hmm. So I'll pose a question or I'll give them a problem to work through. And it's something that they might have to talk with the people around them to figure out the problem. And I'll give them enough time to not only like maybe some of them solve the problem, but that they all do. And that might be 5 or 10 minutes of me walking around class, seeing if anyone needs help, things like that. And they know I'm walking around. They know I can see their screen, so they're not shopping on Amazon. Oh, sometimes they are. Okay, and rapport. So this is what we try to do. We try to generate discussion, try to make it a safe, open place for them to ask questions. We tell personal stories, right? They're humans. They're interested in other humans. And they want to hear those personal stories. They'll remember a lesson better if there's a personal story attached. And I actually do walk around and talk to students individually during class. So I'll say, here's an activity, here's something for you guys to work through, and I walk around and I talk to them. And they can raise their hand and ask me a question. Most of them don't anymore. They wait for me to walk up to them and say, hey, how's it going? You got it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have to get in their face, right? Because they don't. They won't ask questions. And 9 times out of 10, if I walk up and say, so, how's it going? They're like, oh, so I had a question about this? But they weren't going to raise their hand. All right. We talked about the built environment. We said there's no textbooks. So what do? We design our activities to help our students navigate the online material. There is so much information out there. And they can totally absorb the wrong information and get it wrong, right? How does the anti-vaxxer movement propagate itself? Online, right? There's a ton of bad information out there. We need to teach them to find the good information and how to synthesize it into a coherent story. That's what textbooks used to do. They don't read them. Okay?
Molly, how do you do that?
How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, because there's so much information. Are we supposed to be out there giving sort of recommended sites? Or
Sometimes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We will. I've had conversations in class where we say, what are the reputable news sources?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Allison.
I require students to cite everything that they do. So at the beginning of the semester, I give a lecture on plagiarism and how to set integrity and how to cite properly. And students really struggle with that. They've never been taught that before. It's really at the undergraduate level. And so I require them to cite where they get their information. And I never ever use multiple choice or recycle questions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Old tests. It's brutal. I'll recycle questions, but I'll change a few of the numbers in it so you can tell them they cheated because they used the old numbers. That's important yesterday. No computer labs. You can plan all of your activities assuming the computers have laptops. Okay? And they will bring them, and they will quite happily use them. Okay? You can't use your office phone. You don't need office hours. Some of you said you don't even have office hours anymore, right? Somebody here said they don't use the office hours anymore, right? You used to have them.
I did.
Not anymore. But you need to be available to the students in a lower risk setting, in a lower where it's less of a barrier for them to approach you. Okay? And that's before or after class and in a mid-class break. That's how I found it. If you guys have found other ways, then that would be good. And they have no boundaries, but you can have boundaries. There is an expected response time. If you tell the students that, they will honor it. If you honor it, I usually say 24 hours. I will respond to a student question within 24 hours. Okay, so we're at the end here, and I kind of discussed these things all along, but I am curious to know if you guys had any other thoughts on things that you can do to encourage engagement in the classroom. And students, what works for you?
I kind of think everything you're describing, having different aspects. You kind of have group activities, also a little bit of lecture. Some of my best friends I've developed through these classes. You have some lifelong relationships, so I think it is important to have a little bit of group interaction.
So the variety of activities keeps you engaged.
Yeah, and different classes have different ones, which is really nice too, depending on what class you're taking.
Yeah,
I think I've used all the techniques except the break in the middle.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I still think that for reasonable sized class, it might work well. I think for large classes, we need.
We need large classes which are sort of introductory,
Right. A class of 150,
right?
where, during the lecture time, you can't really do a lot of things,
You have, so with 150, you have 14 days, right?
Right, but still,
So, right, but
in
so,
that period of time, you can't do much of the engagement.
but you can do the group activities. 'Cause
We
I've
do
taught-
the group activities. We do group activities.
Yeah.
But during the lecture time, there's
There's,
only so
right,
much you can do.
and I use my TAs as teachers. My TAs have full teaching status in my classes.
Sure,
So when I have a class of 70 people, I use all of these methods, and my TAs walk around just like I do,
Yeah.
and interact with the students as well. Alice?
I would say encouraging technology use and quality technology use.
Mm-hmm.
So just as an example, in this undergraduate class that I teach, everything is always done with mobile internet. And I say that up front in the semester, and I think that brings a lot of relief to people. And it, takes away the testing environment.
Yeah.
Where that causes a lot of stress. And some stress.
The real world doesn't give you tests.
Back and forth between a technology dense world and a technology world.
Yeah, and this is a good point. When I do my tests, they're all open book, open note, open internet, because that's what the real world looks like. The only limitation is time.
The real world, except for licensing exams and board examinations and things like that.
Which is interesting, because I can't tell you how many times I've been in a clinic visit at a doctor or the hospital, and I ask them a question about a medication or something, they pull out their phone and they look up the answer and they show it to me.
I wonder how long they'll stay. But right now, there's still lots of multiple choice examinations, and we have to prepare them for those.
True, but that's not what
Even
the
like
rest
the
of the world
SAFE,
looks like.
isn't that SAFE accreditation? Isn't there multiple?
Yeah, we're required to do didactic training with individual.
Yes, SATs and GCSEs.
Right? And that, I feel like, needs to evolve as well.
But it hasn't yet.
I know. And we're caught in that middle. We're caught in that transition right now. So. All right, well, I will let you guys go because I know it's 1 o'clock and it's time to go. But thank you so much for coming.